everybody, it's Dana. Welcome back to my YouTube channel and blog. Today we're going to be using this beautiful background stamp from Simon Says Stamp, and this one is called Ornate. I went ahead and used it already, but I thought I would share a video with you guys today. So I'm going to use my new Tonic platform, and I already changed the lid to the rubber side, and we're going to do a little bit of watercoloring. So I want to place this in the center of my platform, so I'm just going to temporarily tack this down with some repositioner adhesive. I want to put it in the middle because I want to have my design right there in the center. And if I tuck my card in the corner, my cardstock in the corner, I'm not going to be able to do that. So I'm going to lightly press down and get my design. And now I'm ready. Now for the card today, I want to do a little bit of heat embossing. So that means I'm going to have to use some Versamark. So for you guys that don't know, Versamark is just a clear ink, and I'm going to go ahead and press that down. Now, since this is a rather large stamp, I'm going to make sure to do this twice, and that's because the paper has a little bit of texture to it, and I want to make sure that I get a good impression. Now, this Canson watercolor paper that I'm using is a paper that I always have in my stamp room. It has two sides to it, and I'm using the smoother of the two sides. Sorry about the shaking that's going on with my camera. I happen to be in a different spot in my craft room today because my husband's doing a little bit of work in there. So I'm going to press that down, really press it in good, just to make sure I can get a good first impression. So I'm going to use some white embossing powder today, and I'm going to make sure that I put on a lot, just because this paper is white and it's white on white. And sometimes when you're doing this, you're really not able to see if you have it on there. So I'm just going to go for it. I'm just going to sprinkle on a whole bunch just to make sure that I have it. Now I do have a light where I can kind of like tilt, and I can see where the embossing powder is. You can kind of see it in the video as well. But I'm just going to keep on scooping just to make sure that I can see that I have it all covered. So can you go ahead and see that gorgeous design? It is absolutely beautiful. If you guys have not picked up this Ornate background stamp, I highly, highly recommend it. I saw a couple people color this background stamp already, and it is absolutely gorgeous. So you can really see just a little bit as I tilt the card, but you're definitely going to be able to see it once we get it all heat set and get the design going. So I'm moving that out of the way, and now I can go ahead and get my heat gun. Now anytime I use my heat gun, I like to get it really, really hot actually before I bring it to the paper. So this way it doesn't bow my paper too much, and it actually helps to melt the embossing powder a little bit quicker than if you just bring your heat gun directly to the paper. So I also like to make sure that I heat from the front of my cardstock as well as to the back of my cardstock. It just makes the process of heating the embossing powder a little bit easier, and it also makes it happen a little bit quicker. So I'm just going to make sure, since there's a lot of lines on this background stamp, that I actually make sure I get it all covered and all heated, because the worst thing you want to do is to not get it all done and then go to do a technique, and that's when you realize that all of your embossing powder has not melted. So I think I have it all. I'm just going to do around the edges just a little bit more, just to make sure that I have it melted. All right, that looks pretty good, and now I am done. So now you can very faintly see the design in there. But now here comes the fun part. We're going to do some really quick coloring with no markers, no color pencils. I'm just going to add some fabulous color using just some water and some color bursts. So I'm really going to saturate my paper, and now I'm going to start bringing in a couple colors of color bursts. Now if you don't know what color burst is, it's like color powder mica, or mica powder rather. And once you activate it with water, it kind of spreads the color around. It's actually very, very pretty. And this is a great way to quickly color in your backgrounds without having to use a paintbrush. And within these little bits of mica, there's different colors as well. So as you can see, I'm getting a couple of different colors of red. Now I'm going to add a blue color to this as well. Now don't worry, I'm going to list all of the colors that I used in the description box below. But as you can see, I'm just spritzing away. And now you can really start seeing that flower design come through. I let it sit just for a little bit. And now I'm going to press down with a paper towel and take up some of that color. Now look how gorgeous that is. Now if you want the color to be really, really intense, then leave the color there, let it soak in, and then you can heat set it with your heat gun. But you see how gorgeous that is? I love doing this technique. Absolutely love it. Because you don't have to worry about coloring anything exactly. You just pick up your color burst and sprinkle some of that on there, and it does all the coloring work for you. Now I'm going to dry that off a little bit more, and now you can really see that gorgeous print in the background. Now I'm going to go ahead and do this one more time on some areas that I missed. So again, I'm going to spritz it first with the water, and then I'm going to start tapping on a little bit more of that color burst right in the corners, and then I'm going to spritz again with water and then add a little bit more color. So you can keep doing this to your liking. I'm just trying to do it so I can have all of my areas covered up. Now I don't want strong color, so that's exactly why I keep lifting up some of that color and not just heating it with my heat tool. So at this point, I like how that color looks, so I'm going to set this color right here. I'm just going to go ahead and make sure that that color is set. Now this makes a beautiful and easy background for any kind of background stamp. It's absolutely perfect for that. Now I decided, even though I did like this, I wanted to add a pop of yellow to this. So at this point, I can do the same exact thing. I can spritz it with water, come back in, add a little bit of that yellow color burst. I'm not going heavy-handed with this. A little bit's going to go a long way. I'm going to let that sit there, and I'm going to go ahead and spritz it with some water. And now I'm just going to have a little bit of yellow. I'm going to let the water activate it a little bit, and now I'm going to go ahead and dab up some of that extra because I want a soft yellow. I don't want it to overpower the blue and the red. Now that looks pretty good. Now I'm going to set that aside until it dries. All right, now since this is dried, we can go ahead and make our card. I really love how this turned out. Now, we don't want to cover this up too much, so I'm going to use a cute little heart die right in the middle of this panel. Now, you guys know that heart die looks familiar because I just used it in a video. So can you tell I'm really liking this heart die? So look how beautiful that is. Now, I'm going to go ahead and put this right onto a white card base. Now, the panel is warped a little bit, so I am going to make sure that I use a good amount of adhesive. But anytime that you're using or you're running a piece of paper through your die cut machine, it is going to help flatten it out a little bit. So anytime you're doing that, just remember, if you can put another little shim or so in your die cut machine, it would definitely help flatten out that paper. Anytime you watercolor, it's a great little tip. So I'm going to go ahead and center that right onto the middle of that paper. And that looks fantastic. Now, I really want to have this popped up, so I went ahead and I used that heart to cut out a piece of matching foam. So you can see I already cut that out, but I'm going to trim down that white piece of foam just a little bit because I do not want it to show in the back of the heart. Even though they're the same exact size, sometimes when you're working with foam and you're running it through your die cut machine, it has a tendency to stretch just a little bit. So I want to make sure that none of that white heart is like peeking out behind that other beautiful heart that we just made. So I'm just going to use my scissors and just lightly trim just a little bit off, not a lot, just a tad bit. But I'm still going to have that evenness of that foam. So I'm going to grab my ATG gun. Now you can see how gorgeous this background is. I could have just stamped a nice little sentiment right in the middle, and I could have used this heart on a different card. but I'm really into inlaying my pieces back into my card panels. So I thought this would be another opportunity for me to do just that. So I'm going to pop that foam heart right onto the back of the one we just made. Make sure it lines up, and that looks gorgeous. So look how pretty that looks. So now I want to put a sentiment right across the middle. So I also picked up, while I was shopping at Simon Says Stamp, the stamp set You Got This. I love, love, love some of the sentiments in this stamp set, but I want one that's going to be long enough to kind of fit straight across that heart. I'm going to grab some nice pretty teal paper. This is just out of my scrap bin. And I also want to make sure that I heat emboss this piece as well. Now I'm going to grab my platform, but what I need to do is I need to just kind of center this because I'm going to need to cut the edges off. So I'm going to go ahead and push that down. Oh, I've totally forgot. I need to go ahead and flip over my lid so I have it on the clear side, because remember, we were just working with that platform on the rubber side. So I'm going to line that back up again, and then I can press down, and now we have everything working. All right, so for my sentiment, I'm going to go ahead and heat emboss this sentiment in white, so it kind of matches up with the card panel itself. So I'm going to use my Versamark, and I can go ahead and tap this down into place, and that looks perfect. I want to go ahead and tap just one more time because the paper I'm using is a little bit textured. So that looks fabulous, and I can go ahead and bring back in my white embossing powder, and I can sprinkle that right on there. I just need to go ahead and tap off the extra, and this card is almost done. I can go ahead and place my platform out of the way and heat up my heat gun and get this finished. So like I said, this stamp set is called You Got This, and it has some really phenomenal sentiments in it. You guys can go online and check out this stamp set. It's very, very pretty, and I will actually have everything linked in the description box below, and I'll also have it linked over on my blog as well. I'm going to go ahead and trim this down because I just need a little strip of this to go across my heart. That is absolutely perfect. Alrighty. I'm thinking I might trim this down, but then I went ahead and I changed my mind. I think I'm going to go ahead and cut that down with my scissors instead. Alrighty, let's go ahead and get this card done. So now I'm just going to inlay the heart right back into the center of that panel and just pop it up so it looks like the heart is just bursting from the card. Alrighty, that looks great. And now I'm just going to take my scissors and I'm just going to put a little flag end off to the side. Actually, not a flag end. I'm just going to cut it on a diagonal, just to give it a little bit of variation across instead of just having it cut straight. So for the other end, I am just going to make a regular straight cut using my scissors. All right, perfect. Loving how that's coming together. Now for the back of this panel right here, I'm just going to grab me some foam squares, and I believe these are by Scrapbook Adhesives. I can go ahead and pop those off, and that's just going to add a little bit more dimension to my card. And I'll place that right against that heart. See, and this sentiment does not take much away from the card panel itself. And now just for a few clear little, I call these like little raindrops. They're like clear little gems. To me, they kind of look like little clear water droplets. That's why I like to call them. They're like little water droplets on your card. I'm going to place that down with my multi-matte medium. I'm just going to figure out where I want them. You guys know me. I like to have odd numbers of embellishments on my cards. But using the clear also does not distract from my background as well. So I'm going to pop that last one in place. And there we have it. the card is complete. Look how beautiful that looks. I love how it turned out. All right, and here is what the card looks like, totally done. Thank you guys for hanging out with me today. I will see you guys in another video. Take care, everybody. Bye-bye.